who may be running bakeries or selling on our Etsy shop or, doing whatever it is that we're doing, we're 1 to 5 employees large, who would want to do this to us, right? Well, here are just some of the things that cybersecurity, that cyber criminals are after. And I want you to also keep in mind that in the world of cybercrime, any amount of data is valuable. Whether it's just one name, phone number, and address, right? So what they are after is personally identifiable information. These are the things like name, address, phone number, historical addresses. They'll use these things to apply for fraudulent loans or file fake tax returns, etc. User credentials, obviously, keys to the kingdom. They want to be able to impersonate you. If you do keep any credit card information, they'll want to gain access to that. Medical and legal information. You may not think that you have it on your machine, but if you've ever scanned it, it's on your printer. If you've ever looked at it on your computer, it's somewhere on that drive. Customer contact lists. They love those because they're potential new targets. And also education and employment records. This is just some of the items that they're after. A lot of times they're also after your purchase history or things like that, just so that they can widen their range of attack. And remember, cyber criminals make money by selling the data or by acting upon malicious data. So anything they can get their hands on is, valuable to them. Last but not least, trade secrets, right? If for some reason you have the recipe to Coca-Cola, they'll want that. So what is the risk, right? If we leave this data unprotected, what are we risking in our companies, especially in the SMB market, when this information is stolen? A lot of times, people don't realize that the cost of having a breach is actually more of a soft cost. Customers' trust may be lost in your brand, right? Reputation of having a secure payment method or having their information stored with you is something that they take very seriously. We know that there has been some negative side effects to things like data breaches. Some local companies on Long Island and some big chains even have had data breaches, and people do tend to stop shopping there for a little while, right? Brand loyalty, right? So if you need to spend money on PR to lessen the blow of your reputation, that's also a cost, right? You want to retain the clients so they don't move away from your product or service, depending on how bad the data breach was. Not to mention the actual cost of the attack. Sometimes if you get a ransomware attack or you lose data or they encrypt data, they'll hold you for ransom to get that data back. And last but not least, lawsuits. If you do lose someone's personal information, they may have a legal right, to sue your company to, for negligence or whatnot, in order to regain some of their identity or cost of protecting their identity back. So while having the info stolen is, not fun, taking downtime is another cost. If they paralyze your systems or if the cyber attack takes you offline for any reason where you can't do business, that's another cost. And those are very direct to you, but there are also some indirect, costs to your brand and to your marketing that I think sometimes get overlooked. So we have a vested interest in our companies and our brand, and that's really what we should be wanting to protect. I feel like people are understanding if for some reason you're having computer issues and you can't process a sale at that moment, but they will be less understanding if it's their data that is compromised in some way, shape, or form. So let's talk about the small businesses and why cyber criminals are targeting them, right? So cybercrime in 2020 globally accounted for $5 trillion in losses, and that estimate is supposed to double by 2025. In 2018, a Verizon data breach estimates that 58% of all cyber attacks were targeted at small businesses. So it's actually, cybercrime is actually a really huge business for them, right? This is how some people around the globe make their living. The threat now is at a global scale. Threats originate from anywhere around the world, including remote devices in unfriendly countries that target small businesses in the countries they dislike. Everyone, I think, in the news hears about attacks on, large infrastructure, but a majority of the daily attacks that don't make the news are targeted at small businesses. Last year, while everybody was remote working, so from 2021 through 2020, through 2020 through 2021, there was a 442% increase in new small business cybersecurity data breaches. Small businesses were opening up their workplaces to work remote very quickly without taking into account how that could affect their data, and that's the direct result of it. And we now have, from our statistics with the FBI, 1 in 323 emails sent to a small business are malicious. So we'll be talking about that that attack vector as well. But one of the things that I want you to understand here is that while one of us, one business owner, right, one small business owner may not be, a very lucrative engagement for a cyber criminal, 100,000 of them can be, because that's how they are tailoring their attacks. They're not just attacking one particular company or individual. They are doing mass attacks, throughout the day. And they know this, right? This is why they target small businesses, because they know that a lot of us think that it may not happen to us, or we just don't think we may have anything of value to take. They also know that we have smaller budgets compared to large Fortune 500 companies who have army of, IT professionals who are concerned with cybersecurity, right? We don't have those budgets, so they know that, we may not be implementing those solutions. They also know that, statistically speaking, small businesses do not spend money on cybersecurity training for their users. It's never been a requirement, and so it's something that a lot of small business owners don't do. They also know that we are a target-rich environment, right? There's only a few large companies like Target and Walmart, but there are hundreds of thousands of us. So there are more small to medium businesses to target than there are large corporations. And also, we are a great way to get into a larger corporation. Many people may do work with the United States government, or they may do work for the state, or they may do work for larger companies. And if they are able to breach, those small vendors, they may not actually take anything. They'll just use it as a way to get into the systems of other big corporations. That actually happened to Target. Target had a data breach in 2018 and 2019 that was actually through their HVAC company that they contracted with. They had remote access the HVAC company had remote access into Target's network. That company was breached. They used that connection to get into Target's network, and they had quite a lucrative data breach that way. So this is why they target small businesses, because they couldn't get to Target directly, so they got to Target through a vendor. So we are going to cover 5 major cyber attacks that happen to small businesses: phishing, malware, drive-by, website, and DDoS. So each attack, we're going to cover how criminals infiltrate the organization, and we'll give you the tools needed to defend against them. And just so you know, the reason there are way more cybersecurity attacks that happen. The reason that we pick these 5 is because these 5 are not only the most common for small businesses, but also they are very avoidable. They are items that have solutions out there for you guys to to implement in your organization. So if you were to protect against these 5, your risk mitigation score, which we'll talk about, will significantly increase, meaning you'll be better protected, right? And a lot of these five categories is also what cybersecurity insurance will be looking at if you guys ever decide to go that route and get a policy. So keep in mind, again, any questions you have, let me know, but we'll be covering all those topics. Spear phishing, email. So email is the biggest attack vector for small businesses today and has been the biggest attack vector for small businesses since 1995. So what is phishing and spear phishing, and why does it happen? So emails being sent from a trusted source or from people who appear to be a trusted source get sent into your mailbox, and criminals want to gain access to your website or your data. They'll have malicious code executed in attachments, things like that. They also want to try to trick you. They want social engineering to steal money from you. They'll say, hey, this is your boss. I need you to get me a gift card. Do it now in the next 5 minutes and don't call me and ask questions. Those are things that happen. Or send a wire money. I need a wire transfer right now to this vendor, otherwise we lose this bid. They also want to gain physical goods. They'll place a fake order, and they'll have you send them stuff, and then all of a sudden the payment was false and the bank reverses it. Or they just want to establish a company, organization, and map. They'll simply ask you if you're the right person to talk to about accounts payable, or the right person to talk to for something, XYZ. What they're trying to do is gain an organization map so that they can start targeting other people in your organization as well. And last but not least, they definitely want to steal your credentials. Phishing is the biggest way that people gain passwords to things like Office 365 or your Amazon account or your Google Drive. They'll send you a fake email saying you need to log in for security reasons, and you log in and they take that they take that information. So here's a phishing example. On the right we have one that is actually pretty good from Citibank. This one is actually a fake one that we took from 2008. And when you click on that Your Account link, it actually takes you to a wrong Citibank site. So that link is, while everything looks okay, the link is fake. And so when you click on it and you put in your banking credentials, now they have access to your Citibank. And on the left is another way to get your credentials. They have a link in there that says, hi, we're offering you free trial, update your account and click here. It'll ask you for your Microsoft credentials, and it'll take those. So these are all examples of emails that sort of look okay, but are definitely not okay. If you were to just be quickly glancing at them, a lot of users fell for these two in particular. And so this is an example of what that cybersecurity breach or that attempted breach looks like. So let's talk about how we can prevent email-borne cyber attacks, including phishing and spear phishing. The first thing that you guys would want to do, if you haven't already, is sign up with an email provider that can offer additional cybersecurity on top of your regular email subscription. So if right now you have, let's say, a website with a vendor like GoDaddy, and they offer the email for free along with your website, try upgrading with GoDaddy to allow for them to add on protection for advanced malware threats. They will have those types of subscriptions. Even better, move to a platform that is dedicated to email and security. Things like Google Drive, Office 365, and Barracuda Networks are all vendors who offer email security as well as email services. You could sign up with a Google or a Microsoft for your email services and add on their security, or you can add on a third-party security like Barracuda, who could essentially scrub the email before it gets to Microsoft. It goes through about 2 checks, essentially. Moreover than that, both those services have all 3 of those services have something called an artificial intelligence engine. The artificial intelligence engine, if you subscribe to it, will check email that was already delivered to your mailbox, and it will check links, it will check verbiage, it will check the intent of the email, and it will remove emails that it believes is malicious. So if someone is emailing you asking you for a wire transfer, it's actually going to flag it. It's going to move it to your junk, and it's going to give you an alert that says, this person is asking for a wire transfer. That's unusual. Please check with that source. It's been moved to your junk. It's a nice tool to have, to protect against spear phishing and things like that. And yeah, DuckDuckGo has something like that for sure for email protection. Again, the 3 that I mentioned are just examples. You can find any solution that you're comfortable with. However, a good email security solution should have artificial intelligence scanning. It should have advanced malware protection, where that scans attachments to the email to make sure there's no malicious code on there. And it should also have the availability for you to recover from a data breach. So what that means is it should be able to go through and say, okay, this person had their credentials stolen. Let's work out, how to fix it. So we're gonna touch on how all of these solutions as well. There is a life cycle to it. So we're gonna talk about these solutions to these problems and how you should vet all of your. So for example, right, one great thing that was mentioned was DuckDuckGo, right? Because there are 100 different vendors for these same solutions, how do you choose which one's a good one and which one's a bad one, right? So we're going to go over that as soon as we finish these malware, these items. So malware and ransomware. Malware masquerades itself as legitimate software, for example, free versions of QuickBooks. Ransomware encrypts data on victims' machines and threatens to publish or delete it if paid. There is a new version of ransomware, which is called extortionware, where they take your data and threaten to, they don't delete it anymore. They say, well, we have a copy of all of your personal information. We will release it and start using it in a malicious manner unless you pay us, right? So it's now extortion instead of ransom. All of these malware and extortion ransomware, what they want to do is get money. They want a huge payoff. A great example recently is Rockville Center Schools that went through a extortionware attack. That was in Newsday. They ended up paying a little over $100,000 to get their data and their students' data, by the way, back. It's big paydays for people who are successful in their targets. They also use the ransomware and extortionware to track your activity in marketing. And that data can actually be sold to the right buyer. Believe it or not, there's actually a huge market for marketing data in particular. Big companies, including ones in the US, are guilty of it, where they purchase marketing data from questionable companies overseas and use that data in their marketing efforts. They don't really ask questions on where the data came from, but it's people who have installed malware on other people's computers and are illegally tracking them. And last but not least, they want to do data breaches, right? If they can copy database information, if you have like a CRM, like a customer relations management software, they want a list of all your clients for sure, because that's part of the extortion. You know, they'll say, we have a list of all your clients. We're going to tell them that you had a huge data breach, and we're going to show them all their personal files if you don't pay us $50,000. So those are all reasons why malware and ransomware exist. To protect against this, two things. You're going to want to have a multi-layered approach. One would be a firewall, a network level firewall, meaning wherever your office is, whether it's at home or at a building or a shared workspace, you're going to want to put in a firewall that will detect unauthorized breaches. They're called next generation firewalls. Vendors include Cisco, Sophos, Meraki. All those three vendors are huge vendors. FireEye is another vendor that's great. They sell everything from small office branch firewalls to enterprise level, put it in a data center firewall. So you can definitely find the ways there. The second is not antivirus. Everyone says, get antivirus. No longer. Get EDR, which is Endpoint Detection and Remediation. The difference between antivirus and EDR is that EDR is the next evolution of antivirus. Antiviruses would keep a database of known viruses that can be on your computer and periodically scan. EDR takes those databases and actively looks for other threats that are happening to other clients. And when it finds a new threat, it automatically updates that database and scans everyone. So it also has the ability to isolate workstations that do have an attack. If for some reason things get through your firewall, get installed on your machine, and then it lives on your machine and tries to spread out to the rest of the network, it's smart enough to cut off your computer from internet access to the rest of the network so that it's only your machine that's infected. That's huge because most data lives outside of your person's machine. All right, drive-by attacks. These are website and network-based attacks. Websites have scripts that execute web pages functions, and attackers try to insert malicious code into that script. It requires zero intervention on the user's part, and the security flaws are based on websites and operating systems that are hard to catch, meaning they haven't been known about before. A pop-up window and email attachments are also popular venues for the attack, which is why web browsers have had pop-up blockers for years now. So how do we protect against that? The next generation firewalls that I was talking about before have built-in website firewalls or website DDoS firewalls. If you do most of your business through website or e-commerce, it may not be a terrible idea to get a dedicated website firewall. Those website firewalls will protect against SQL injections, malicious code, man-in-the-middle attacks. If your business is solely based on an e-com business, then you will want to have that extra protection, which, by the way, is also offered by most major vendors. And last but not least, if you have a just purely informational website where people can just get information from you, you are not exempt. While your website may not be driving money, it is your online business card. Fortinet, I'll answer that question in a bit, Jill. So when you have the informational websites, whoever your website provider is, ask them about your website security protection? Is the data being scrubbed and checked when visitors are coming to your site? Next one, website and database attacks. So we were talking about this a little bit before, SQL injections and dictionary attacks. These two sort of go hand in hand, which is why the same solutions will be, applicable. So password attacks is packet sniffing to allow if passwords are not seen. The difference, just so you know, between the drive-by and the website and database attacks, the drive-by attacks target the people who visit you. The website and database attacks target you, target the company. So they want to get your users' passwords. They want to get, they want to attempt to log into your website using common known passwords. That's a dictionary attack. Common known usernames like administrator or test user or things like that. They'll try to get into your website as an administrator to make changes to your site. SQL injections target the database that runs your website. So what they'll do is they'll use those same security flaws that they use to target your customers. They'll use those security flaws to target your database or your server backend, because they know if you're running an e-commerce site, you have a database of products and services. So they'll try to target that because most likely you'll also have your products, your services, your clients, your customers, your payment information. All of that will be in the same database. Those aren't really spread out, right? So they will put injections in there to execute those items. Cross-site scripting, which essentially steals information, works in conjunction with SQL injections. What this means is they can try to script your website so that as they try to test your security on your SQL database or your database in particular, as users are making valid requests in, let's say I'm a user to your website and I log in to buy something, they see that successful login, so they'll try to piggyback off that and cross-script between the drive-by attack and the website attack. So legitimate people going in, they'll try to piggyback off of that and go into your database that way if they can't get in. So I will talk about that for sure, Jackie. So website database attacks. You want to maintain your user portal on a regular basis. You want to do regular maintenance on that, meaning you want to patch it regularly, and you definitely want to have all of these types of attacks: the password, dictionary, SQL injections, cross-site scripting. That should be part of your website security package, especially if you're doing e-commerce. If people aren't logging into your website, you may not need SQL injections or cross-scripting protection because there's nothing to script, right? If it's an informational site, it's a smaller attack vector. But if you are using an e-com platform, definitely make sure that has those types of protections. A quick note on what it means for someone to steal your domain name. GoDaddy offers protection for this, yes. So on to network and DDoS attacks. We'll touch this really quick because I know we're running out of time here, and we want to get to New York State and stuff like that. DDoS attacks are denial of service attacks. It's where people flood your system and stop you from communicating. And man-in-the-middle attacks are attacks where people insert themselves between your client and server communication. Denial of service attacks will target your office, your website. It will make it so busy that the service won't be able to respond back, or that you'll reach your traffic limits. Many people have websites hosted that have a maximum of 1 gigabyte of traffic a month or 20 gigabytes of traffic a month. Once you reach that, your website's down. And people know this, so they'll push all the traffic there, take your website down. Now you have to pay more and figure out how to work it out. Why do they do this? They're just mean. They just want to disrupt your company. They want to add price. So if you again, let's say you felt for a ransomware attack, and now they want you to pay, but you're not paying. So let's do a DDoS attack. Take down your company and be like, I told you, you know, this is, if you don't pay, I'm going to keep doing this, right? If you have man-in-the-middle attacks, that's where people insert themselves between client-server communication. That's like inserting themselves between the communication with you and your bank, or you and another legitimate website. And what they're trying to do is impersonate you. They want to redirect the traffic. They want to essentially be a man in the middle. They want to get all of the traffic that you're sending so that they can later make a request as you, right? It's the man in the middle attack is the quickest way to gain access to an impersonation. So the way that you can protect against those is, number one, be selective about the places that you are signing into. Man-in-the-middle attacks have been around since the 90s. They get more sophisticated every year, but large banks that are the important part, or large companies for medical care have put in these firewalls that won't let that happen, right? They're scrubbing. But if you choose, for example, a smaller company for your insurance, maybe it's not someone who's nationwide, ask them about their cybersecurity plan when it comes to that, just so that this way you know that that your data is safe with them, or what kind of privacy policy they have. Denial of service attacks, there is something that you can put in. It's something like a Cloudflare that will stop DDoS attacks before they happen. They'll see that something is trying to flood your network. So for example, firewalls, the next generation firewalls will have DDoS detection. And when they see that, they'll just say, oh, okay, just ignore all the traffic from this spot that it's coming from. It's a DDoS attack. They'll even alert you and say, this is happening. And you can then try to either move services away or increase your firewall resources, et cetera. Where are we getting our standards from, right? Who should we be? We want to implement cybersecurity. We've talked about some of the solutions. So where do we start vetting solutions, and where do we start, protecting ourselves, and what can we do to protect our network and computers? Essentially, exactly what Jackie was asking, right? Like what do we do, and where do we start? Well, the first thing that you should take a look at is your business and see whether or not you have to follow any sort of compliance. If you are in the financial industry or financial services, New York State has a NYDFS, which is the new standard for cybersecurity for financial service companies. New York State also has a cybersecurity regulation board, which extends past just banking and insurance and financial services. It actually extends, the New York State SHIELD Act extends it to every company that has to do cybersecurity training. So that's, at minimum, cybersecurity training is what is required by New York State. It is similar to the anti-sexual harassment training, which is a 60-minute video that you have to watch once a year that sort of goes over cybersecurity and what end users should be aware of. A lot of companies are implementing a twice-a-year program that they use to keep people up to date on things. But besides that, if you process credit cards, or if you keep credit card information in your business, you need to apply by PCI. If you have health insurance information, that includes lawyers' offices that have people's health records on file if they're doing injury law. At any point in time, if you're holding that data, you'll have to abide by HIPAA. And all of these standards are regulated by the National Institute of Standards and Technologies, NIST. That is a government-run website. It's also good to mention here that there's been a recent popularity and creation of CISA, CISA, which is the cybersecurity arm of the United States government. They're focusing mostly on zero-day attacks and things like that, and we'll start seeing much more information from them. IT professionals have already heard of them for sure. So this is where we start. If your business falls in any one of these, obviously everyone falls under the SHIELD Act, but if you have to do anything more, you will see most of that here. But definitely check with your business partners to see if there's any compliance you need to abide by, and that will give you the set of rules of what to do. But here's the cybersecurity framework. This is from NIST. Every solution that you look at has to be able to do these 5 things. It needs to identify the data that you're protecting. It needs to implement some sort of protection against that data. It would need to be able to detect if you are under attack and what is being stolen. That usually goes along with some sort of alert. It needs to be able to respond to the detected attack or prevent its spread or eliminate it altogether. And last but not least, it should be able to recover from that said breach. So if your solution doesn't have these 5 things, you should move on to a different solution. Or if you only have one part of the solution and you're happy with the vendor, then you may want to increase your services with said vendor to have all of these in it. At the moment, I don't believe, the question from Jill is, do we have to submit proof of the SHIELD Training Act? I don't believe at the moment you do. I think it's sort of like a honor-based system. I'd have to double check, but I will get that answer for you. So when we talk about email, or we talk, let's take a look at, hold on a second, how can we reduce the chances from hacking? Okay, so the question from Jackie was, how could we reduce chances of hackers accessing our networking computers? So we are going to go through these items, and we will see how solutions can do all 5. So the first thing that you can do to prevent hackers from accessing your networking computer is user training. There's no better protection than an educated user. Just like Jackie asked, should we be using passwords? You should be updating your passwords. Moreover, you should be using passphrases. Passwords like password123 or your pet's name are, they used to be fine, but passphrases are what is considered a little bit better. Passphrases are sentences like, I love Poland Spring water, right? Or my favorite car is a Toyota. That can be your password. They're long. It's a passphrase instead of a password. And if you implement 2-factor authentication, it will allow you to have not just the passphrase, but some sort of other method of verification for you to get into your system. Those should be changing about every 90 days.
Really?
And it will, doing those things, even just the 2-factor authentication will, significantly reduce your chances of people gaining access to your network or your computers, because they'll need to steal your 2-factor authentication key, which is very difficult. A word on biometric authentication. We already went over that, with the biometric read. Unless it's a tokenized biometric option, try not to use it. It's still not tokenized in Windows and Apple. So use 2-factor applications. Microsoft has one that's called Microsoft Authenticator. Google has Google Authenticator. iCloud has a Apple 2-factor authentication, which is a text message. So definitely, use one of those for your 2-factor authentication. User training also lowers the risk of cyber attack for all 5 types mentioned, because the end user training does cover all of the types of attacks that we saw here. Security awareness training is available from Barracuda, Cisco, Webroot, Wombat Security. Almost every security vendor has some sort of end user training that you can purchase. Training should include the following topics: identify malicious code on mobile devices and wireless devices, physical security, such as passwords and social engineering, and reporting a problem, as well as securing and backing up your data. That should all be part of your end user training. Just quick on these questions.
Yeah.
Authentication code apps worth having for social media accounts. Yes, if you have on any account that you log in, if 2-factor authentication is available, use it. Social media, banking, personal, all of it. Lastpass. What about Lastpass? So Lastpass or things like 1Password, while they're not considered the best, they do have their own built-in try security. So Lastpass, before you can get into Lastpass, you'll have to provide your username, your password, and then a key that is given to you once when you sign up. So you can use them. People find them very, helpful. I would personally suggest not to, but I understand that it's very difficult to not do that. So if you are going to use something like LastPass or 1Password or any type of those password savers, make sure you have all the security enabled. 2-factor, certificate, a phone call, all of it. Any type of authentication that they allow for securing your account, please do so, because that's like keys to the kingdom over there. So definitely do that. Can data associated from biometrics be used to steal your identity too? For example, fingerprints in your picture. Yes, it can. So if you do have a biometric, let's say you do have one that is tokenized, it's usually used as a form of 2-factor, meaning you'll need your password first and then your biometric entry. So if they need both to get it, they'll be able to steal an identity there as well. A word on that as well, some biometric data is voice. If you get phone calls that ask you, like it's obviously a robot, right? Or a marketing call that at first asks you a yes or no question, do not respond with yes or no. A lot of banks and a lot of major companies are implementing voice menus, and they will ask you for your voice. They actually use voice recognition. They will ask you for voice confirmation. Do you confirm this charge? And you'll have to say yes. So what these cyber criminals have been doing is they'll be calling people that they've already stolen the identity for, and they will try to get their voice mapping. And what they'll do is they'll call you and say, are you so-and-so? And you say, yes. And they record that. So try not to answer, well, obviously try not to answer more. But when you do, or if you do, try not to give like yes or no answers, especially right off the bat. It's a very fishy thing to have someone call you and ask you a yes or no question. Usually the first response is, hi, if it's a sales call, hi, my name's Ron, would you like to buy chocolates, right? So those are the kinds of things that, they want you to say yes, right? They don't want you to say no. So just be careful on that. But yes, biometric data can be used to steal your real identity if it's used in 2-factor. The next portion, email protection. This goes, again, back to Jackie's question, how can we reduce people accessing networks and computers? We already did periodically update your password. You want to implement email protection, because this is how people will be trying to get your credentials. This is how people will try to get your passwords. So let's go back to that 5-step process, right? Your email protection should be able to identify what they're protecting, right? Email messages and real-time protection. it should be able to detect and send you an alert when problems are being scanned. For example, your email security solution should let you take a look at what issues were detected in the last 30 days. It should also allow you to respond to issues. That include DKIM and DMARC reporting. So if for some reason you sent an email and it didn't get to its person or it was blocked, your email security solution should be able to see that and respond with the reason why. Maybe your email was spam. Maybe you put in the wrong email address. You shouldn't be blind when it comes to those problems and solutions. So your email protection solution should be able to say, here's all the email you sent in the last 30 days, and here's the delivery status of it all. And if it wasn't delivered, it should be able to tell you why. Recover. Should something start happening, like let's say a mass email attack, the solution should be able to block inbound attacks by dropping the malicious packet or the malicious email. It should also allow you to recover from stolen passwords. Let's say you have 1 or 2 employees and one of your employees had their password stolen. Your email security solution should be able to say, okay, this user had their password stolen. We're going to start blocking all email, inbound and outbound, from them until we fix this problem. We are also going to unsend any of the email that was sent internally and attempt to unsend or stop sending the email that was sent externally. Vendors that have these solutions, that have a solution that has all 5 of these things, include Cisco, FireEye, Sophos, Barracuda, Microsoft, Google, and Symantec, just to name a few. All right, next one, endpoint and endpoint protection monitoring. Going back to Jackie's question, how can we help people from stop accessing our networking computers? So we did the user training, the passwords, blocking, getting a good email security solution so that people can't attempt to steal our passwords. Now, another way of reducing your chance is email protection and monitoring. Endpoint protection and monitoring. This is what we were talking about, where antivirus is not, the standard anymore, right? EDR is where we go now. So it adds that final layer of protection. The system monitoring will make sure that your software stays up to date to prevent unseen flaws. It should allow you to have isolation and granular network reporting of your computer health, and solutions should include real-time protection and scanning, WMI integrated scanning and updates, real-time threat detection and alerts, an endpoint level firewall, meaning it should be able to block connections to your computer, and centralized monitoring and reporting. You should be able to see all of your all of your EDR solutions in one pane of glass. So, identify, what are we doing? We are mitigating the risk following any type of malware attack, website attack, or drive-by. The solution should be able to detect. That's why we need real-time scanning. It needs to be able to detect if something is going on your computer, but more importantly for EDR, it needs to be able to respond and recover. Solutions should have an auto-quarantine feature so that malicious code stays on one machine and doesn't spread to your entire network. In order to recover from it, the tool should also be automated for recovery, meaning restart a process, perform a system restore, clean up files automatically without you having to ask it, without you having to intervene in it. Solutions for these, for endpoint protection or EDR include VMware, ESET, Webroot, Sophos, CrowdStrike, and SentinelOne. Question, I saw the far red that Kaspersky is banned outside of government contracts. Kaspersky is banned. If you are attempting to do any business with the United States government on the federal level at minimum, I know that, You cannot use Kaspersky, especially if you're in civil engineering. If you're a construction company or a subcontractor of a construction company, the Department of Transportation was the first one to ban Kaspersky at a federal level. Outside of government contracts, is Kaspersky effective? Because Kaspersky is technically owned by the state of Russia, no one's suggesting it because there's just while there's no proof that they're doing anything malicious, it's just something that they don't do. And I promise you that in Russia, they are not allowing any American-made antiviruses either. So it's a mutual dislike. Endpoint protection. So those are the vendors. Now, sorry, I know, Jay Brian, that really didn't answer your question. Is Kaspersky effective? I mean, sure, it is. It's been around for a while. I personally, my personal preference, I wouldn't use it, and I would highly recommend that my clients stay off of it. Next generation firewalls. So going back to the original question, how can we help prevent, how can we help prevent people from getting into our network? Next generation firewall is a huge piece of it. Next generation firewalls provide intrusion prevention and scanning for attacks that come outside the organization. Appliances provide protection for multiple attacks, including your users internally going to bad sites. Solutions should include content filtering, advanced malware filtering, deep packet extension, geo-IP filtering, which means you'll block anything from not the US or Canada, and high availability encryption. A word on zero trust networks. Zero trust networks are the future. I don't think it would be cost effective for small businesses to implement them now, but they are coming out with cost effective small business solutions for zero trust networks, which maybe by the time we do the next one, we'll be having more word on that. So identify the risks that we are identifying with the next generation firewall are your website and your database, your network and your DDoS, your drive-by attacks, and your malware. It protects a lot. The only thing that isn't included in here is email, and there are some next generation firewalls that do include email, such as Sophos. Detection. It should have a centralized reporting for security threats and real-time alerts to block activity. So if someone does try to get into your network, in real time, it should send you an alert and it should start responding to it. In the response, there should be a kill switch upon detection, which means if it sees an attack, it just kills the connection. It doesn't allow the connection through, and that in turn saves your network and your workstations. Geo-IP blocking can cut down on 70% of threats because now you're only allowing connections in from the United States, right? You block every other country besides the US. And again, the reason why not a lot of people are doing cyber attacks from the United States is because we have laws against it, and so they can be caught. So by geo-IP blocking, you can really cut down on a lot of threats. And recover. High availability should allow your business to run multiple internet lines and recover from attacks. So if you are getting a DDoS attack, let's say on your Optimum line, you can just switch over to your FiOS line and cut off your Optimum line temporarily. Also, it should allow you to delete things that were attempted to download, or it should allow you to recover from an outage by either going to a highly available firewall, meaning if Internet 1 is out, go out of Internet 2, or if you have Internet 1 out completely, it should also have some sort of 4G or 5G backup that you can use to get out to the Internet. Vendors of these types of solutions include SonicWall, Cisco, Palo Alto, Sophos, and Meraki. Question. With emails, what if you try to unsubscribe and you still get spam? You report spam, but emails still come in. I don't want to make a new email if possible. If you have an unsubscribe button, then that is a legitimate spam. I'm sorry, that is a legitimate email that has come in because you've signed up for something. If you've unsubscribed to it and they keep sending it to you, usually you have to wait about 30 days for them to update their database. So if a month after you've unsubscribed, you're still getting these messages, your email solution should be able to mark it as spam, and you could block the sender completely. You could actually just block the domain it comes from and say, I never want this. You blacklist their domain on your email security solution. If you go with any one of them that we mentioned, you'll be able to do that. You'll say, hey, this person or this domain is sending me unsolicited spam, mark it as spam, and block the domain. And you should be good to go from there. And then last but not least, backup and disaster recovery. I know we're going a little over, but this is definitely worth it. Your business needs to have some sort of backup and disaster recovery. They are not the same things. Backup solutions offer a last resort to cybersecurity incidents or accidental deletions, things like that. It allows your business to restore operations after an incident or a natural disaster. Disaster recovery planning, or DR, means that there is a plan of what happens if a large incident occurs where your data is no longer available. Where are you going to get your data back from? Let me give you an example. Backups are great for if you get some sort of cybersecurity incident, all of your stuff is encrypted, you can restore from backup and clean out your machine and you're good to go. What if the place that hosts your email all of a sudden loses all of your email? GoDaddy, Office 365, things like that. It's nothing that you did, it's all on their side, but in their terms and conditions, it says you're responsible for the backup of your data. They'll try their best to get your data back. Has it happened? Absolutely. But disaster recovery says, okay, apart from your backup, what's your plan if the data is no longer physically or logically accessible? For example, after a flood or some sort of other incident, a fire, natural disaster. What are you going to do in order to get yourself back online? So while they are two separate things, they kind of do go hand in hand. So that's why you should have a backup and DR plan. Solutions for backup and DR plans should have backup encryption of files, the ability to send your backup data offsite, alerts and reporting for each backup job, and protection against malicious deletion, such as GFS retention. GFS stands for grandfather, father, son. So the risk that backup and recovery mitigates against is all 5 categories that we talked about. Detecting, the detect portion is that the system should alert if any backup jobs fail or get stuck. It should also tell you if they're successful. There should be centralized reporting. The respond portion is an auto restart and backup integrity check to make sure that you're getting reliable backups. One-click restores and sandboxing allow for fast recovery time. So that's your respond portion, right? Like, how long is it going to take if I need to restore my data? So you want to make sure that you have the ability to do one-click restore or some sort of quick recovery option. Restore, it's very important that you maintain a 3210 method of restoring files. What that means is you have 3 copies of the data in 2 separate physical locations, with 1 piece of the data being active and a 0-day recovery time objective, meaning you should be able to restore the data for the current day that you're in. Vendors that have all of these solutions that meet all of these requirements are Symantec, Acronis, Veeam, Commvault, and Datto. And Datto was just purchased by Kaseya, and that was like a week ago. So just in case you need to know. Cybersecurity insurance. When all else fails, this could save your brand. If you have cybersecurity insurance and for some reason all of these mitigations didn't work and you don't have any backups, cybersecurity insurance will kick in and help you respond to your cybersecurity breach, including getting lawyers and working with law enforcement and informing your clients, et cetera. We hope you never have to use it, but it's a nice to have.